Hey, Shepherd family, this is Pastor Scott Seidler, and I am joined by Pastor Alan Rosnau this go around on our Shepherd podcast, especially as we are looking into this coming weekend of worship here at Shepherd, and we round out our next generation, next step, I should say, sermon series focused on our strategy, mission, vision, values of the congregation going forward. Pastor John gets to take a week off because he's gallivanting as we've got a very major conference here in the Valley, Best Practices for Ministry at our sister congregation, Christ Church Lutheran, down toward the Indian School Roadway. So he is doing a lot of stuff down there. So it's me and Alan you've got for this happy little podcast. Alan and I, by the way, I get to have him talk about being a grandpa because I just found out I'm a grandpa. And of course, Alan is grandpa times two. Alan, just for the grandparents out there, any specific advice you would give to a grandparent for successful grandparenting? Anything that comes to mind, especially maybe as you advise me as a first-time grandpa?
Well, oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it is the greatest thing ever. But, resisting the temptation to be overly instructive to your children about how to raise their children.
I love that.
They don't really want to hear it, but no, just loving it, and just appreciating the wonderful gift of God that grandchildren are. And it really helps you appreciate your own children too.
Yeah, for sure. It is hard. We've got so much child rearing. You've got two kids. I've got three. Between us, that gives us, 20, 30, 40 years of raising kids. I mean, depending on how you want to do the math. And so we've got a lot of built up muscle memory, but we had to figure it out when we had to figure it out. And so remembering that, tempering or metering your instructive tendencies, especially for pastors, and teachers who counsel, that can be a hard thing. Well, hey, we're going to be talking today about our final installment of this vision series. And, one of the things I celebrate, Alan, about you is that you've been serving as a pastor here at Shepherd for 30 years. So you have been around the block on a lot of this vision, mission, values, strategy, creation, review, reflection, all this stuff. And now we come to this present iteration or effort basically since last April. And I really asked you today, and let's talk through three things that you, as someone who's got so much institutional history and wisdom here at Shepherd, three things that you're taking out of this process since last April that has been inspiring or insightful or maybe fresh and energizing for you, because you've seen it all. You've been part of all the meetings. So, kind of what would be your first takeaway from this mission, vision, values, strategy, strategic planning process we've been in?
Yeah, well, I could certainly go on about more than three, but you don't want to hear Rose now ramble on and on. So I'll limit it to three. But, these are the kinds of things that came to my mind. As first of all, is just the fact that we are in this process asking the visionary question, which I think there are probably many congregations that don't do this. They kind of just go through their regular week-to-week, month-to-month routine, but never really think about the long term. And we're asking the visionary question of where do we, as Shepherd of the Desert, see ourselves in 5 years? When we get to the year 2030 and we look back, what do we hope to see that God has done through the people of Shepherd of the Desert over that 5-year time span? I think that's exciting because that gives us a sense of what we can be doing now to set goals in place and to see what God is going to do. That's the first thing that comes to my mind is what God is going to do. I'm reminded of a time when Jesus was with his disciples, and he says to them, "Whoever believes in me will do the things that I've been doing, and even greater things than these." Wow, for Jesus to say that. But that's an invitation for, I think, us as his followers to to do great things in his name for the sake of the kingdom. So that's first of all, wow, what an exciting future we've got.
I love that. I love, you're absolutely right. So many congregations get into what my wife will often say and remind me is this attitude of scarcity as opposed to an attitude of prosperity. That is to say, does God want our future to be better than our present? And we could say it in a lot of different ways. Like, can we make an improvement on our present condition, our circumstance of discipleship, by doing something better or different in the future? And I certainly don't want to dictate to God what that future has to be, but I also don't want to be irresponsible as a, thinking human being that plans out what I'm eating for lunch, before I leave from home. Am I taking the leftovers? Am I going out to eat? What am I going to do? God has given us human minds to actually be able to reasonably anticipate what the future might look like based on current conditions in the congregation. And so I love that. I have always lived that way. I'm a visionary person, and I am also a person that's very glad when the vision hits a brick wall to say, I guess we're not going to do that, and to have no shame or guilt about let's consider something else, I just think it's just critical to have that attitude.
Sure. I mean, it's always about staying open to those doors that God is opening for us, you know, and there's directions that he wants us to go. And I concur with that.
What's that? There's a cliche, like, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what you're going to do. Isn't there? There's something along those lines. And I appreciate the wisdom in that cliche. Like, who am I, this finite human being corrupted by sin, to ever tell God what to do? At the same time, without testing God, I do want to live in his grace of saying, there's 5 million people living in Phoenix. Is there a likelihood that one or two of them might connect with Shepherd in the next 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Throw a dart. All right, Alan, what's number two? Your number two takeaway.
My big number two takeaway is that in this process, we've identified an opportunity to expand a small group ministry here at Shepherd of the Desert, and that's really exciting to me because I don't know what seminary life was like for you, Scott, when you were there, but when Linda and I were at the seminary, it was our Friday night small group that got us through our seminary years. I mean, we met every Friday night it was 8 couples, and that time together, praying together and sharing life together was so meaningful. And I just am excited about that here at Shepherd as we not only do the 40-day forgiving challenge, small group focus during the Lenten season, but even beyond that, as we look to expand our life group ministry. Right. I think that is really exciting, and we talk about our vision being that Shepherd is a family of faith that connects every person in every season to the life that Jesus promises. Yeah. And one of the best ways to do that, I think, is in small groups. So that's my second big takeaway.
I love it. Every church, in order to get bigger, has to get smaller. That's another cliche that I love. That's, pastoral wisdom. That is, you can't do meaningful community in worship. You have to break it down into, smaller group Bible studies or fellowship groups. This is the natural outflow of certainly our 6 years together. I'll throw John in. I mean, he's been here for 4.5, 5 years, and, we're kind of the Three Musketeers right now pastorally in this season, post-COVID, really. And it is high time that we have a more dependable structure for small groups. And this forgiving challenge that we're going to be going through, I'll be interested to see how it all, shakes out. But, your attitude about this is, let's go. Let's do Zoom. Let's do in-person. You've got a, let's get to it kind of attitude. And I think that's what we've really got to have. And then be willing, like we just said in the last, kind of segment, Be willing to let God shape how that actually comes to pass. Were you, by the way, I know you're a baseball player. Were you like a seminary baseball player? Did you play on the sem team then?
No, and I really wasn't a baseball player very much. I mean, I played as a kid, a young kid, but I just love baseball. It's just the sport that I follow. But
I
no,
love
I
it.
didn't really play at seminary level.
Yeah, yeah. I tried to play the seminary golf league. That didn't work. That was not good at all. Not good at all. Okay, number three. What's your number three, Alan?
Well, I love this. We've identified some key values of our congregation. We've been highlighting those, and the one that especially stands out for me is the one that says that Jesus turns my friends and neighbors into my family of faith.
Yeah.
And this one just really connects with me in a very personal way. And I've shared this story before, but it really goes back to when my own mom was just a little 9-year-old girl. And
Yeah.
she and her 3 siblings and parents, they were an unchurched family. And somebody from a local Lutheran congregation, mission congregation, came by one day and invited my mom, little Susie, to Sunday school and church. And she went and she learned about Jesus and she became the missionary to her family and she brought the whole family to church, and I think about that unknown, unnamed person who made one invitation
Yeah.
and how that changed the
So
trajectory
good.
of my mom's extended family for generations to come into eternity. I'm part of that, so that whole idea of reaching out and extending an invitation to friends and neighbors to just come and learn about Jesus, come and meet the people of Shepherd of the Desert who are so great.
Yeah.
And, that excites me.
Yeah, the that just for our shepherd family. If you've not heard that story, this is now I think the second time I've heard it. It is truly one of the deep cuts of Alan Rosnau's Christian life, and it reminds me that all of us have these, and I call them it's like the deep cuts. You used to have albums, right? There were these, for those of you who are younger, vinyl albums, and, they'd have the number one hits on the album, but then the deep cuts were those songs included on the album that you might have liked but never got radio airplay. Each of us as Christians have what I would call the deep cuts of our Christian discipleship. The stories of our life that probably nobody really knows, but they are absolutely essential to filling out who I am as a person. That story about your mom is just inspiring. My story from Okoboji Lutheran Bible Camp in Okoboji, Iowa. I mean, it is a huge deep cut of mine. And right, it's about, my youth director saying to me, I was working at Hardee's, hey, Scott, we need a chaperone to drive 9 hours from Chicago to Iowa. Would you do that? Well, I'm only 18. Do I need to have insurance? Which I did, but there was no risk management back then. You just put a bunch of kids in a car with an 18-year-old, and here we're driving across in a caravan to Okoboji. But it's really where I mark the beginning, the true renewal of my Christian life, having been baptized as a child, now taking ownership of that. And that would not have happened had my congregation's youth director, who didn't know me, say on a flyer, hey, what do you do on August 2nd through 10th?
Yeah.
You want to drive? Well, sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm a pastor today because of that invitation. This conversation doesn't happen without that.
Yeah, that is awesome.
It's
and,
unreal.
and the fact is that every person has a story, and every person's story is worth hearing, and every person is worth being valued and listened to and attended to. And that's why I love your emphasis, Pastor Scott, on breakfast, lunch, or coffee with people, because
great.
it's about one-on-one with people and hearing their stories and hearing their God stories, just hearing how God's story connects with their story,
100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just add as we kind of wrap up this short conversation, it's where everybody in our congregation meets the vision, because ultimately we're not just about an organizational endeavor or an organizational set of actions. What we're about is realizing that God puts each and every one of us in a place to be the agent to realize this vision for our congregation. Mm-hmm. And that happens by taking notice of the neighbors and the friends that are around us. This is, in other words, this sermon series is not about what staff is doing. It's about what we as a church are doing. And so, anyways, Alan, it's super fun having you along for the ride on this one in leadership here at Shepherd. It is so good. And also as a grandparent, because I am, in my opening week of learning what being a grandpa is all about. So I appreciate you giving light to me as a great granddad to two beautiful little girls. So that's really, really awesome as well.
Well, congratulations to you and Renee. That is just fantastic.
You betcha. You bet. Hey, well, thank you again. And Shepherd, thank you. We look forward to seeing you this weekend. If you're in Scottsdale, we'd be glad to have you here at Shepherd as we wrap up this Next Step sermon series. And then we're going to be turning into the Forgiving Challenge, written by Zach Zender. It is our Lenten focus, and it'll be also what populates our small group for small group study, discussion, and prayer. So if you want to be a part of that, give us a contact back through our website at shepherdaz.church. Thanks a lot, Alan, and we will talk to everyone again real soon.
All right.